Well, hello, I'm going to show you my router table. On the internet there seems to be no end to the router tables, and I enjoyed studying and researching it. I've made about 5 or 6 myself, and they tend to wear out eventually, and you want to improve them and so forth. So this is my latest table. One of the things is I'm really put off by the cost of some of these factory-made units. I've seen them as high as $700, and it just doesn't seem wise to spend that much money on one when you can do most of it yourself very effectively and cheaply. Nobody denies the benefits of a table-mounted router. I like to bring the tool to the work as much as I can, but it's undeniably better sometimes to have the tool mounted in the table and do the work that way. This table was a base from a portable table saw that didn't last too well, and instead of throwing out those tools, you might consider keeping the base instead of throwing the whole business out. This top was a cutoff of a 3080 commercial door. It's meant to be laminated with plastic laminate. It's about 2 inches thick almost. Very heavy, very solid. I made the door into a bench, which is another video for another day. But this was an off-fall. I just liked it because it was flat and heavy. I thought I might laminate this bench, but I changed my mind on that. It's not very big, but you don't really need it that big. For 90% of what I do, it doesn't need to be that big. I think a router table should have a good solid fence that's 90 degrees to the table. I just can't stress how important that is to have a good 90 at the table, a flat table, and a solid fence. You're well on your way to a good system if you've got that. I like feather boards and safety devices. They cost money, but you can make those pretty easy yourself. I'm a big believer in T-Track. There are several kinds. I use a lot of it. I think you should buy as much as you can afford of it, although it costs money too. T-Track, as you probably know, receives a standard 1/4-20 bolt. Slides in the track. You could put a bolt with a knob of many kinds, and as soon as you do, it sucks the bolt up tight, locks on the track, and as you can imagine, there's a million different uses for such track. A lot of things we couldn't do until we had this extrusion. Now we can do them pretty fast and easy. Fits in a standard 3/4 bit slot. Similar item is T-Track miter track. Fits the miter gauge of most table saws. I had a Shopsmith and other saws, but Shopsmith miter gauge is very well made. This is meant for that and other models. So I installed that on this table for an occasional time in which I want to use the miter gauge, and it's worked out well. The fence is an old extrusion that I had. It was actually the component of a Ryobi table saw, which I didn't use. I've used T-Track back here to mount the fence. These little brackets are products made by Incra for such a mounting, but I found out they were too flexible. They want to lean and flex. They're not quite sturdy enough for this application, so I went ahead and made my own wooden brackets that are just little simple wood brackets glued and nailed. Here's the knobs. Drilled and tapped the back of the extrusion for 1/4-20 bolt. Extrusion is something, like I said, that I had laying around the shop. This could all be out of wood. This is just junk that I had. Extrusion was a component of a Ryobi table saw. It had 2 3/4 miter slots in it. T-Track fits a miter slot. So I installed a T-track in one of them. That allows these sacrificial fences, which every fence should have, to be adjusted for the width of the router bit. That's important. I think you should take the time to have that feature. And you can take them off if you want. The other board and other devices can fit in a piece of T-track on the top, or I have a backup support that can come off. The thing can swing out of the way. There's any number of devices and fixtures and things you can do to enhance the safety of the table. I'll show you the top. Again, this is what I think is unique about this. Some of these router sub-bases now are $49 and $69 and even $100. And again, I'm put off by the cost of these sub-bases, but you really need one. You need these aluminum bases are designed to mount your router, drop it in the table, take it back out. Some of them have larger holes for filler rings, very valuable. Although for me, I don't use that much. I just need about a 2-inch hole and does 90% of my work. So I thought, why can't you use a piece of standard marble tile? You can buy it at the home centers for $2 or $3. A piece of granite tile might be $4. Extremely flat, polished, very durable. You're not likely to wear it out. It's solid, reduces vibration. So I mounted it. I have an old 690 router that I use for this. Just a good old router for medium to small bits. As with most of the old 690s, the clamping mechanism stripped out and wouldn't work. And I used a little C-clamp for years here, but got my own clamp now. Lay out your base with your existing router base and cut you a 2-inch hole and drill and countersink your screws, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Lay out the base on the tabletop, and I have about about an inch and a half rabbet here. And sneak up on the depth so you can get it flush and flat. If you go too deep, just take some plastic laminate for shims and shim it back up, because you need it good and smooth at the top. You don't want it down, and it obviously can't be up. Dust collection I do through the bottom. Got an old fitting here, 2-inch hole. Most of the dust will suck out through the bottom. My shop, you can tell I'm not a fanatic about dust collection, although I don't believe in a dirty shop. I think you should have as clean a shop as you can enable yourself to have. I cut the hole using a cutout tool. Marble's not as hard as you think. This is a cutout tool. You could probably use a Dremel tool, although the motors are a lot weaker. I used a tile bit, which is a carbide burr bit, round on the top. Standard tile bit. A lot of carpenters have these. You may have to borrow one. It's not that expensive to buy the bit. If you have a Dremel tool, take your time and use a Dremel tool. Big believer in using what you have. Anyway, just lay out your hole. I laid a 2-inch circle out with a Sharpie marker. And I cut this in 2 passes. Just take it slow and you'll be surprised how well it goes. You can freehand it. You can take sandpaper and clean up the edges and smooth it a little bit so there's no rough, sharp edges. The holes, you can just drop this bit in and actually drill the hole with it. Drop it in. You can waller the hole out a little bit, enough for 1024 screws, which happen to fit this router. You can countersink the screws with a glass bit, available through most hardware stores. Not very expensive. Works real well. I probably have $20 in this router table. That's because of the track. Altogether, $20 or $25, junk from the shop. I think it's the best router table I've ever had. I know it's worked real well for me. Thanks, and have a good day. By the way, safety first. If it doesn't look smart, it probably isn't. So, plan your moves, be safe, look at the suggestions and guidelines in your manuals with your tools. They actually do have some good facts in there. And happy routing. Thank you.